Hi, I'm Brent Feldman, and I am back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox. Today, we are joined by James McMahon, our senior digital strategist here at Matchbox Design Group. And today, we're going to be talking about SEO topics, all sorts of interesting SEO topics that I know James will have a lot of input and feedback on. And really happy to have him here on the podcast. So, hi, James. How are you doing?
Hey Brent, I'm good. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Definitely.
Um, I love being in front of the camera, by the way. I'm not awkward, and so this should be great.
That's awesome. All right, cool. I will join you on that. So,
Do you know why the SEO crossed the road?
uh, no.
He wanted to get hit with traffic.
Ah, oh man, that's a good
Ha!
one. Do you have any more? Any more jokes?
I do have more jokes.
All
Do
right.
you want to know? Do you want another one?
Yeah, yeah. Right off the top.
What music do SEOs like?
I don't know.
Alternative.
Oh, ooh,
hmm
that that's good too.
hmm
Yeah,
Have some more. I might throw some more at you later.
yeah. Um, Sounds like optimized comedy. Oh,
I like it.
yeah. Well, that is definitely the perfect way to start here. Uh, I guess we have some questions to run through, and I will hopefully, if you want to sprinkle in some more jokes, absolutely do feel free because I'm sure there's some really just good golden nuggets that you might have to drop. But jumping into very serious topics here. Maybe first off, what are some big myths about SEO that seem like they don't go away? We know that they're out there. We know that people think things and they aren't true. But anyway, yeah. What are some myths that you can think of?
I mean, like the number one myth that is forever, and it's where I think in the SEO community is like SEO is dead because it's always dead. Like every other year, nobody needs SEO or it's dead. It's obsolete. Blah blah blah. That's not true. It's a myth. And then that goes into the same like along the same line of like SEO can be done once, like it's a one and done thing, which is totally a myth. It's an ongoing, ever changing thing that must be, uh, I don't know, I guess done constantly because Google is ever changing and they make something like, I'm just going to throw a number out there. It's going to be absolutely wrong, but 100 changes every day. I don't know, something crazy like that. But then they also have their huge algorithm changes. So keeping up with that is very important. So you can't just do a one and done. Big myth. How many myths you want? Because I myths all day.
Yeah, I mean, like those are definitely really good ones. And certainly when you're talking about sort of like that one and done, I know sometimes people ask for like, oh, we'll just do this once and make sure everything's good and then set it and then quote unquote forget it. But
Mhm.
you can't forget it like that.
Yeah, not with SEO.
Yeah.
It's a long game. Like it's a, unfortunately slow play long game that rises up over time. So
Yeah. You mentioned SEO is dead, which is interesting because isn't it? Yes, definitely. I feel like that is, a myth that gets tossed out there. Like, you can't do as many things to affect it. And like Google's, going to, overrun all your organic work with ads and the map pack and all that sort of stuff. But, in regards to SEO is dead, didn't Google just recently start doing actual SEO quote unquote training?
they did, yes. And from what I could tell, it's really bad. No offense to you, Google. Don't penalize us for that. But they were giving out some weird info that didn't seem like I think one of their forget his name, doesn't matter, but one of their people that they brought on to do like to be their SEO, like he's got some stupid job title. But I'm sorry again, Google. But he was like That was bad info. Don't really listen to that. I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but it
Yeah,
was
because
laughable. It's like, what?
was it Matt Cutts who used to give out, kind of vague info all the time? Matt Cutts was good. I mean, he was, definitely smart guy, and it was very interesting. And now he's not there at Google anymore. But I remember all the advice was just like, we might or might not do something, and you're like, cool.
Yeah, they follow best standards, and then it's like, what are the best standards? And then they tell you best standards. It's like that's not really the best. That's not true. Like that was like part of the training. Like, they were saying stuff like, make sure your content is like 300 words with like something something. Stuff that's like maybe 10 years ago would have worked, but that's their current training, and their own people who are in charge of SEO are like, yeah, don't listen to that. That's not right. Like,
Yeah, another part of the
which is
company is
Google.
feeding you bad info.
It, I mean, that's Google's thing. They're confused, I think, is like their number one like objective. Just confuse everybody. No one will know what they're doing, and then they'll have to buy ads.
Yeah. Well, as there is bad info out there, just for anybody who would be, sort of like listening of like, what are some of those simple things that you think anybody, can do for themselves, or, just as even like a kickstart to kind of getting their rank up. I know obviously that's a pretty broad topic, but any sort of just baseline things of, hey, start here.
Yeah. I mean, I would say just like the first thing would be to like publish relevant and authoritative content about whatever your niche is. Um, and it sounds like it could be hard, but it's really simple. I mean, it's like the most basic thing you can do. But that involves, doing a little bit of keyword research, doing a little competitor research, and then writing a piece of content that's better than the top ranking pieces, and then optimizing and using kind of just some basic things, which I guess we can discuss what that really means a little further. But I think that's the easiest thing, the first place to start, if you know nothing about SEO. Of course, if you were going to ask me, I would say, start with site health and make sure everything's working correctly and blah blah blah. But like as an easy win, or the first place would be to do some on-page SEO after you've written a good piece of content.
For sure. Like everybody who owns their business, you would think in some way maybe that they're a subject matter expert about something. And if you've got something to say, let's say you own a bakery, like talk about the process, what you do, how maybe your process is different from, other people's baking process, or why you use the freshest, highest quality ingredients, or yeah, there's definitely things that that sound like it would be very natural. And I think that is a good point, because not everybody wants to jump into Google Analytics, not everybody wants to, or knows how to set up Search Console. But as long as you have a website, if you have a place to publish content, maybe even just on social media too, yeah, work on your content game. That sounds solid.
Absolutely. And to just continually refresh it, update it. Like you don't have to necessarily write new content all the time, but if you have a piece that you think you could add a couple more paragraphs or some more info, some things changed or whatever, then just update it, refresh it, and republish it. You don't have to have new content every time.
Cool. That
Um,
that's definitely solid too. And as people are kind of, maybe writing this content or putting it together, what would you say are good places to start in doing keyword research? Because let's say that they write this content, but then they want to dig a little bit deeper. And this is also helpful for relationships, not only if you're, a business doing this, kind of on small on your own for yourself, but as you're working with an organization too, having participation in the process is so important. I'm just going to like throw that out there and vouch for it, because number one, SEOs rely on subject matter experts to get that content out there. And then, two, the more that you're engaged, with that kind of relationship, with, your partner doing that SEO stuff, that you are providing them, really important information and feedback and stuff. So if you're doing your own keyword research to say, hey, this is what I found doing this, that is helpful. Certainly you should be able to rely on your SEO team to be able to, do that keyword research, but at the same time, feeding some of that initial data, some of that, kind of like, gut check baseline sort of stuff can always be helpful. So yeah, where would you say, James, that like it is good to, maybe start doing that kind of research?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on where you're coming from. So, like, if you're the small business, and you hired an agency or whatever, like, then for us, the beginning the research is getting info from them. Um, how are people finding you? Do you know how people are finding you? What products do you have? What services do you have? What do you call all of your products? Just getting all of that information. But if you're someone doing it on your own, I mean, you can just use Google. You can search for things that you think are related to your company, and Google has a great, like, people also search for this, or questions also asked, or people also ask this, and then those things you can use, you know, as keywords, because if people are searching for them or asking about them, then they're probably important and they're related to what you searched for in the first place. You can also look at the top ranking pages for the terms you searched, and look at how they've titled their tags and their pages, and what keywords they're using. It's a good way to do some research. You're not going to get like numbers necessarily that way, but you're going to get information, and then you can take all those words, if you want to go further, and start using tools. Like, there's Chrome plugins you can use. I think Keywords Everywhere is one of them. You just put it on your Chrome, and when you do Google searches, it tells you how many people search for that term, the difficulty of it. Really simple stuff, but and there's tools such as like SEMrush, which is my favorite, which is more intense. It's paid, and gives you really intense deep dives for research. But I mean, you can, like I said, you could do it for free just through Google, all the way down to paying however much SEMrush costs, or any other tool, and put it all together. So,
Yeah. One of the hacks, or I guess not really a hack, is just kind of using one of the things Google has that like, uh, or you could have at Google's fingertips. I don't know. Anyway, one of the things you can use on Google is
mhm.
their instant search. Somebody made a suggestion of like, just throwing like, hey, put in, start to type in your keywords. And then, sometimes you'll get sweet long tail, opportunities that will pop up. Sometimes you'll just get hilarious Google instant search results of what
Mhm.
weird stuff people search for all the time. But Google instant search. So basically, if you go, homepage of Google and you start seeing those results filter in as you type, those things are the things that people are most commonly searching for, and they're trying to, obviously get users to like jump in there. But I heard that the other day. I was like, oh, it's those, it's a good idea, and I've used it, frequently. Um,
Some of the most basic things, like, that you wouldn't think of. It's like, oh, it's that easy. Okay, and then yeah, from there, of course, you have to expound upon it and deep dive it. But if we're just talking surface level, that's definitely the way to go.
Cool. Well, as I think there's some stuff, even though obviously we are, over 2 decades into SEOs being a thing. You know, I still think at some point there's kind of like stuff that's shrouded in mystery, or seems like it is, or about what is kind of going on day to day. So, is there any way you can paint a picture about like what does sort of like a day in the life look like, or what does like an average sort of like work day look like when putting in this optimization work on sites for clients?
Um, no day looks the same. They're always different. Absolutely. I mean, it depends on the client, it depends on the industry, it depends on what you're doing for the client, it depends on where you're at in the how long you've been doing work for them. I mean, a perfect day to day would be for you to actually, you know, do what you plan to do that day, but it just never works that way. I mean, I know that's very vague, but I mean, that's why I love SEO and like why it could also be frustrating, just because you're going to run into issues. There's going to be something that comes up from another website you're working on. You may start out thinking you're going to do keyword research, and you end up going down some wormhole or you find something else out and it takes you somewhere totally different. Which for me, because I'm ADD, I might think of a strategy because, oh, that could work, and then you go in a totally different direction. So the life of an SEO is definitely not. It's not ABCD every day. Like it just doesn't work that way. So
It's just not linear.
absolutely not.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things like you mentioned, kind of something taking you down a path, or like seeing maybe a piece of data that takes you down a strategy rabbit hole, and that is totally true. That if you happen to notice that, oh well, this page was performing really well, well that's cool. That can give you maybe a few ideas of what potentially to do, and I think like there is this idea that maybe you don't like everybody, even SEOs and even the best, nobody knows the exact right answer. Obviously, there's like the baseline things that you should do, like have it semantic structure that's good, having like good titles and descriptions, and good long form content and stuff, and like there's so many just like basic sort of strategies to follow. But at the end of the day, once you kind of do some of those baseline things, it's really a path of what do I think will make the most impact next. And I think
Right.
that's the thing that can be so hard to really explain sometimes. Yeah, is it like creating another piece of content? Is it retitling this page because maybe it wasn't effective enough? There's just so many things.
And you could be working on something and then get a alert that, oh, Google changed this or there's an algorithm update. So then you have to go read and stay current on what exactly is happening, and you're always staying current, and which is always changing what you're the way you're attacking the end goal. The goals don't change, but it's the way you're getting to them. But you're also working with other teams too, because you have to work with the social media team, most likely web development teams, content, paid, depending on if different people are doing, the different um, SEO, PPC, etc. So um, you never know where they're going to be at and how that's going to affect what you're doing that day. So
Hmm.
it's ever changing.
Definitely. There's definitely there's constant flux, but you did mention that's kind of like the thing that keeps it exciting too. I certainly agree. I definitely think that the digital strategy portion of it, how do you, and you mentioned this too, but like how do you attack an issue? How do you get to it? How do you best affect change? And that can be really fun. I think maybe there's though, as people do optimization, and even as being like somebody who does this day in day out, somebody who's done this for years, what would you say are the things that maybe people miss when optimizing? And again, I know this is another kind of broad question, but yeah, is there anything you can think of that are like maybe things that people just aren't thinking about or don't keep in front of them that maybe they should?
Yes, but first, what do SEOs use when they go fishing?
I don't know.
Link bait.
Ah, all right.
I'm sorry. Now, what was the question?
It was, what do you think people miss when optimizing their site?
Um, ooh, well, what do they miss? I mean, they miss. It's kind of basically it's overlooked maybe. Like by not like first knowing like your audience and what their intent is and understanding like your market and who you're actually talking to and what their behavior is. So like I guess the psychological side of it, people don't think about, and they just are going for numbers or vanity, like keywords, or we want to get this word right up. So they're not actually, you can rank really well for whatever keyword, that just has a lot of searches. But if that doesn't bring in an audience that is their intent is to come to your site and buy something or use your service, then what's the point of ranking for that word? So I think people miss that part of it.
Yeah.
But if we're talking like I guess actual just things people miss it, when you're doing like an on-page optimization or whatever, like obvious things like are always has to do with images, image optimization, like just naming the image right, making sure it's the right size and height, and putting in the alt text. It's like the most basic thing for me, it seems like, but it's like commonly missed. Um, and it's crazy too because it actually helps with like ADA compliance because you have to have your alt text in there um, to help with like screen readers and stuff like that. But at the same time, it also tells Google what the image is about. And if you're able to insert a keyword into the alt description at the same time, then it helps out everybody.
Definitely.
So
That's super solid. I know that's tedium. If anybody has ever had the joy, the pleasure of like building a website from the ground up, certainly it can seem taxing, to kind of put in that kind of that information in the background, whether it just be, accurate titles, well, all text, but it's become more critical now, to do it. And just as you mentioned, it helps with like image search, and that became more prominent some years ago, so that's why it's and it's still really good to do and super important to do. But I think you mentioned something first about like audience stuff, and that
mhm.
is so solid. I feel like if you don't know who you're talking to, it's so hard to work out your funnel. How are you going to get people in and through the site? What are the questions that those customers are asking? Like those are like baseline kind of like sales tactics that like if you can't answer their questions accurately, they might not be convinced to, either make a purchase or give you a call to, get services. So I think there's, so much about that, just about just knowing your audience, who you're speaking to, how you speak to your audience, that definitely have certainly seen it get missed, as people are, optimizing their sites or just thinking about, who they're talking to in general, marketing their business or their company or their product. So,
Absolutely. I think another thing that people forget or miss is internal linking and like using it properly. Because like you can actually rank pages without any backlinks to them if you properly use your internal linking. And it's different from backlinks because internal linking you want to use like exact match, anchor text. Um, Tell Google exactly what the other page is about. And it helps with user experience because it will send them on to, keep them on your page longer, keep them on your site longer, send them to other things that are relevant. But it also sends the link juice to those pages, and people just don't usually. A lot of times they'll say click here to read more or something like that. That doesn't help. Like so, thinking about those types of things.
yeah, and I think you touched on ADA. That doesn't help for that, where you have a bunch of buttons on a page that say, "Yeah, click here, learn more," or whatever. They're
Mhm.
not very descriptive on where it's taking you, and yeah, it's bad for multiple reasons. So, yeah.
And the thing about like common like SEO optimization is if you do it right, really you're optimizing your site for ADA compliance.
Hmm.
So that's you can kill two birds with one stone. Like,
It's
that's that a saying? That's a
yeah.
saying, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
it's a good saying, but
I feel sorry for the birds, but yeah, definitely.
uh,
Uh,
why do mobile marketers make good parents?
I I don't know.
They are responsive.
Uh, I ooh, that's actually, you know what? That's hitting me. All right. I feel like that, I because at first I'm like, oh, bad dad joke, but I'm like, no, 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 no. I get it. I get it.
Mhm, mhm.
That actually is that's fair. It's a good one.
Thank you.
How many more do you have?
I'm not sure.
You're just keeping it a mystery, and that's good because I'll just walk into those. So yeah, that sounds good. Uh as you do, and I do, and we do, uh we have clients and stuff that we're doing work for. And certainly I, just a little bit ago, I was talking about the importance of, kind of that engagement of providing information and input to the team that you're working with, and making sure to continuously provide them, feedback and, internal data, all that sort of stuff. Is always key, because that kind of information will help your SEO make better decisions about what to potentially do or what to recommend. But other than that, can you describe, how a relationship between a client and and somebody who's doing SEO, how that would be most beneficial to work?
Sure. Yes. I love our clients. I love all clients. They're great people. That said, um, I think that, I mean, the best way a relationship would go, like in my head, is you have your initial meetings. Um, you kind of work out your goals, like the client's needs, their wants, etc. And you come up with strategy plans, um, like I said, goals, etc. And then from there, having the client understand that we are actually the experts and we know what we're doing, and we're doing everything we're doing has a purpose and a reason for doing it. We're not just making random changes or whatever for the heck of it. We're trying to, the changes we're making are to hit those goals, drive more traffic, raise your visibility, get you more leads. But giving them the understanding and is hard sometimes, that SEO is slow and that it does take some time. And sometimes, they become, uh, well, they want to see results today. So, educating them and having like a back and forth that is, more, I guess, just to where they understand that we're on their side and we're working with them, not against them, and trying to help them. And I mean, we want to see more leads and traffic and stuff as well. That's the purpose. That's our job. So just to get a level of trust between yourself and the client, so that they trust what you're doing and don't question everything. And also have them realize that it's a symbiotic relationship, and that we're not, even though we are working for them, like, mm, there's not a reason to be micromanaged, because we need to be able to do our job in order for them to see rankings. And if we aren't able to do it, then they're not going to see the rankings, or they're not going to see visibility, they're not going to see improvements.
Hmm.
So towing the line, figuring that out, how to make that happen. Every client's going to be different. Some are just going to be like, do what you do, have fun. Some are going to be like, we're going to pay attention to every single thing, every single change, and you have to approve everything. Which, to be honest with you, means everything gets delayed, everything takes more time, and a lot of times, like, just we don't see the results that we want to see, because, like, if your hands are tied, then you can't really, do the job that you want to do, because SEO is a holistic service. If the client is just focusing on, we want this one keyword to rank, do whatever you can, and we want to see 2 blog posts, and not folding to that and just being like, yeah, okay, then we'll rank that one word for you. Having them understand that, like, our job is to raise your whole website's visibility, from branding terms all the way to whatever the plumber in my area, um, and having them understand that site health, the user experience, all of it goes together and into this umbrella of the service that is actually helping your site in the end rank better. Like, we're not just making a post on your blog about a certain topic just to do it. Like, there's a purpose behind it. Um, but also explaining that to them so that they understand it, because maybe they just they have no understanding of it.
Mhm.
You know, but so yeah, just having that relationship where building it to where it's good enough to where they trust you to do what you need to do, um, and then reporting to them, what you're doing, being able to answer their questions, and I think if you're doing the work right, answering their questions right, um, explaining things to them, then you'll earn that trust, and you'll be able to do the work the way that you need to.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think
There
I went on a tangent there, but
No, no, that's fair. I mean, like, there, because you did touch on like a number of things, which I think are, important. That, trust is definitely important. And sometimes as you get into a relationship, seeing those instantaneous results is something that obviously you'd want to see out of, like, an ad, quote unquote, that would be performing, or like, oh, I want to see this thing, this service that I had, pay off initially. But, I'm sure if anybody has ever heard about, SEO, it's like it's the long game. It is the thing that you're going to have to make an investment in, but that the yield, down the road is just, is a huge payoff. I will say that, for our clients that we have been working with, for a long time, the triple digit increases, in organic traffic are just something that come with diligence. And that's where, putting in the time, but also having that trust, as you mentioned, is super important too. I can say, not only from your side, but from mine too, that, we'll always be cognizant that there can be, rules or boundaries or something. But at the end of the day, you had mentioned like trying to make sure that you can act on the things that you're doing. Any SEO can be a wonderful strategist, but at the end of the day, if you aren't making the changes to affect change, to actually bring about those results, literally you're going to get nowhere. Everybody can have good ideas, but it's about putting, pen to paper. How about, what keys on a keyboard? I don't know what the computer expression of pen to paper is, but anyway, like, you have to do the work in order for it to work. And definitely being tied on that, and but tied to results is not a match. So definitely, I think those are all, kind of solid things. I If I could advocate for anything, it's, yeah, it is. It's like understanding that it's going to take a while, but the people, as long as you've hired, experts and stuff, they know their stuff, and they're going to work at it, and it's going to work. You just have to have the diligence and time and patience. So,
absolutely.
cool. Well, I guess, jumping into, kind of the next thing, this is interesting because it's, kind of in that, what am I getting out of the relationship sort of thing. But it's about ROI. And I think, there are some, you know, as I mentioned about, the payoff in the long term, about, growth and organic traffic, and obviously, paying attention to conversion metrics. But is there anything you can say that is like maybe what is true about SEO ROI, or what is false in terms of perception of it?
Well, I mean, the perception of it is that I pay you, I get a certain amount of leads, and then I determine what the worth was, right? So, but with SEO, like we talked about, it's a long game. It's also uh, bringing visibility. It's bringing people to the page that maybe grab your phone number and then leave, and then call you 3 months later. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think it's ROI. So there, I mean, technically, like I wrote this down a long time ago. Hold on a second. There's an ROI
Is there a
that's like
formula?
formulated,
Hmm.
uh, and it's something that's ridiculous. It's revenue from SEO minus the cost of SEO investment divided by the cost of SEO investment. Okay, I don't know what that means, but I think it means that uh, however many leads they get, and what they're worth is the amount that was divided by the investment. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't make any sense. For me, it is more so um, looking at where you were when we started versus where we are, a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9, 10 months, what the goals were. Are we hitting those goals? And the ROI is more set at, okay, so the goals were, we want to get 20 leads to our form, and then in 6 months. So in 6 months, we did 50 leads or whatever. But we can't, necessarily say those leads are going to lead to sales for you. Uh, but they were qualified leads that we got, and the goal was 20. We got 50. So, the return on investment for me is more looked at, are we hitting the goals? Are we hitting, what was achievable when we first talked, and like what's changed since then? And are we bringing worth um, to your website, to your business, rather than just like it's harder to just say this. I threw this money in and I get this, this amount out.
It's
Because
too static. It's yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you're e-commerce, you can find it organically and then walk to the store and buy it. And so it's kind of hard to, you can show the numbers. Well, these people, this many more people were on your site. Maybe they didn't purchase something that day or fill out a form that day, but it's hard to, since the visibility has risen and the traffic has risen. It's hard to say that they didn't come back later by typing in, directly going in and buying something, or like I said, walking to the store and buying something. It's just unfortunately, ROI is harder to track for SEO than a lot of other things.
It is. It's not as transparent. I completely agree because as you were talking about the things that you might be looking at or that formula. That formula in general is like, all right, fine. What are you going to look at? Organic traffic and how many conversions you made off the organic traffic channel. Well, that's static and maybe not actually fair to the whole thing because hey, buy better organic rank. Did they then actually go back to your site directly? Did they have that URL in their browser and then go back there, but they found you because they ranked well organically the first time? Was there a backlink that, got built and therefore it becomes referral traffic, but there was a conversion on that channel? So it's like, what are you going to track in terms of like, that performance that can be that explicit? And it's not, it's a combination of factors. Um, and and as people kind of look at that too, like there's also conversion rate optimization that we will act on for our clients, looking at people's product pages or how they're set up or how the funnels are set up throughout the site. And so if maybe those activities weren't performed, theoretically that falls under the moniker of like search engine optimization, or it certainly could, is like,
Right.
as you do those things on people's sites, that's affecting their business. There's been a lot of like, pages that we've, been able to improve it drove up sales, dramatically. Now that might not have been the thing that was focused on, driving, traffic or organic rank. but it was the thing that actually made a threefold difference in sales. Just thinking about one client. So there's a lot of things that can affect change, and but you brought it back to goals, and that's so real. Because if you think about what you want to do, you can audit a site, you can look at it and be like, all right, this is a problem. This is a problem. We need to fix this. Here's a recommendation here. Let's try to do this better. Out of those issues and stuff that, you or whoever, that SEO team that you work with, notice, uh, fundamentally creating good goals that everybody can kind of gather around does totally help, that situation. Is like,
Right.
as long as you agree on those things, then it's much easier to be held to that, as opposed to vanity metrics or some sort of ROI calculation that is probably too simple to actually calculate that value.
Right. And I mean, if we wanted to like go with what the client wanted a lot of the times, like what, okay, a vanity keyword, like we could formulate an ROI based on that, but I mean that's just not the way you should do it or the way it should work. So I mean it would be easy to come up with, wow, okay, you ranked number one for this word that has all this traffic and you're getting all this traffic out, but is it really helping? But we, of course, you could say it is like, but again, that's why, like you said, it's not really transparent sometimes. So, but just tracking as much as you possibly can, and using analytics and using, having tracking on everything if you can, the phone numbers, the lead forms, et cetera, et cetera. But
The
yeah, I
the
think that
the data will help.
absolutely, it's all about the data,
Yep.
data, data, data.
Yep, I totally agree. I know that we've been talking about, a lot of very, sort of like serious things or things that people are missing, but maybe uh what could you capture about SEO that you feel like is like exciting?
Exciting.
Hmm.
I personally, I get a rush like whenever I've been working towards like something like achieving like specific visibility or keywords or getting people to start funneling in and filling out the forms. Like whenever it actually starts happening, it's like very exciting. I
Hmm.
mean, it's
Yeah.
very nerdy probably, but that's what excites me. Like taking a site from let's say garbage, just no rankings, site health bad, and then it, to having it be very healthy and moving up the charts and start making sales if it's e-commerce. Like that's awesome.
Hmm.
It's a win. It's a win. Win win win. So
Yeah.
also getting really good backlinks is exciting.
That is true. And you've
I hate
you've gotten some
I
really
hate
solid ones for Matchbox too. So
I hate trying to get backlinks, but getting them is exciting.
really high DA backlinks. Um,
Yes, because one high DA backlink could be worth more than like 100 bad, like spammy backlinks. So
yeah. The wins are like that thing that I think, for everybody in like, sort of creative field is like, the thing that you get excited about, for developers, like, you make something work and yeah, it's like, that serotonin dump that comes along with like doing something that you kind of derive success from. And anyway, and so like yeah, it is I'm chuckling only because like yeah, there's like that thing to where, oh hey, the thing I was trying to make movement on actually worked. And
right,
that's always fun, because like, so to some degree, and I mean like, we know best practices, but we're also dealing with the zeitgeist. We're putting in the things that we know how to do and the things that we have learned and gleaned tactics and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, like that visibility is not guaranteed. It's not, something that you can even count on necessarily. But at the same time, when you do the things you should do, that again, the diligence, and then you see it come to fruition, I could definitely agree. It's like,
Yeah,
yes.
it is. I agree because again, SEO is ongoing, constantly changing, and it's like, you know, it's like, where, am I ever gonna make this happen? Is it ever gonna, get there? And then when it happens, it's like, yes, like relief. But then it's like on to the next one. Like,
Hmm.
gotta keep going. But it feels good for a minute. So
Yeah. I will say the challenges are fun too. Definitely when you're put up against a challenge of like, trying to do something or combat something or like certainly like seeing maybe one word rank and then you're like or a competitor rank for a word and then you push up, rank against them. I think that kind of stuff is fun, and I you kind of wonder if there is like ever going to be it's almost like it's like a jousting arena. It's like gladiators, like jousting on SEO rank and stuff, but nobody ever
right,
talks about what they're doing. There is no face-to-face competition. It is literally just kind of like behind the scenes. But I think it is fun, like vying for stake on something. But there is no actual physical thing. It's just
right.
SERP pages.
Well, yeah, it's like if you're ranking really well for a term and then somebody ranks better than you, it's like, oh hell
Uh-huh. Yeah.
no,
I,
that's
I'll be
not gonna work.
I'll be right there.
Yeah, bring it.
Yeah. Well, cool. And then buzzwords. Oh man, if SEO isn't filled with like buzzwords all the time. And I mean, I could probably think of some, but I thought I might ask you what are 5 buzzwords that you think are related to SEO, and then 5 that people throw out there and you're like, maybe that isn't. And
I don't know if those buzzwords, but I do have another joke. And the
oh,
answer
oh,
could be a
okay.
buzzword.
All right.
What do SEOs use besides consonants?
Oh man, I want to get this one, but I don't know.
Just the vowels.
All right, I wouldn't have gotten
That's
that one. That's
kind of a
good. That's
buzzword,
good.
right?
Yeah,
Mm.
disavowing
Um,
backlinks.
yeah, buzzwords. I don't know. I mean, domain authority, bounce rate. Are these buzzwords? Is that what you're looking for? Stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, that's fair.
Uh, I mean, just on page SEO, off page SEO are always buzzwords. They're like important. Those are actually like, like infographics. It's a buzzword, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
Do
those are
follow,
all fair.
no follow.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Do you think
Uh,
people like especially with like things like domain authority, do you think those get leveraged too hard as like, oh, we've got to achieve great domain authority and whether they know what that means or not potentially, and whether it matters, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, domain authority isn't a thing, and or page authority isn't a thing. And like obviously people cast doubt on all that kind of stuff all the time, but what do you think?
I think that goes back to the myths that the domain authority and page authority aren't a thing. Yeah. Google said page authority, even though they got rid of it, they still say page authority is important along with other stuff.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's absolutely important. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't know how to, because in order to get domain authority, one of the main things you have to do is get backlinks from other websites that have high domain authority. So it's like, okay, how do we get domain authority if we don't, if you're like, really low domain authority and no one wants to link to you because, so yeah, then it's the whole process of starting, doing the research, starting the content, making it link worthy, and yada yada yada. Like, I mean, it sounds easy, but obviously there's like 1,000 steps in between there. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people would just say, I want a better domain authority, or say,
Do you know what that means?
Don't we all want that?
Yeah.
So,
I I think of and I definitely tell me your feedback on this, but it's like your like I hear people talk about algorithm updates, and then you're like, and you can see Google's log on it and or whatever they're saying. You can definitely see all search engine journals, response to what they think, some of these things are, what they mean. But I definitely think that is one that it's like it you know, number one, you don't know exactly what is going on, what is going to change, and I mean, they are telling you generally, but exactly how it's going to affect your rank, I feel like sometimes people throw out algorithm update as a buzzword, or like,
yeah,
use that to be like, oh, we've got to be really concerned about this algorithm update. And I was like, well, find out what, they're requesting you do. Look to do those things and then see what happens. And I don't mean to like be so callous about that, and like kind of like it doesn't matter. It does matter, but even when they said that like when they were making all the adjustments for like site speed stuff, they were like, oh, okay, we're gonna definitely be really cracking down on this, and then here's all these metrics you can use to make sure that you understand like load time and first contentful paint and all the the things that come along with it. And I've read a billion articles on it, but at the same time, like even of this last algorithm update, I think I saw that they were like, well, it's not that they're gonna get demoted, if you didn't have anything, but you may get promoted, in rank if
mhm,
you did some of those things. So,
right.
like all of this, and again, I don't mean to say that they're making it up and none of this is serious, but at the same time, people use algorithm updates as like a like it's the reckoning, and that's not exactly how it works.
Yeah, I agree completely because like I mean the thing is if you're doing everything the way you should be doing and not necessarily the way Google says, but I mean if you're doing white hat SEO, you're following like all of your on page, off page, your site's health, your speed, everything is you're just following best practices. You shouldn't worry about an algorithm update because if it hits, you're probably gonna see a boost in your rankings. I mean, if
Hmm.
you're doing something sketchy uh, and you're worried about the algorithm update, then that's a problem.
Hmm.
So, I mean, yes, you can still see like bumps when they hit and go down a little bit, but usually you'll go back up because I mean, Google can't really penalize you for following best standards and doing everything the way that you're technically supposed to do it. So,
Hmm.
I mean, whenever I hear algorithm update, I just say, "Great, let's see what this is about," and then okay,
Yeah.
cool. 'Cause
And this is not to refute, the point about your the people doing shady stuff and but it's actually maybe even to tack on about like following the guidelines and best practices. We have both seen people do really insane, like tons of duplicate content, like just weird, bad things, and them still continue
yeah,
to hold crazy rank. And you're like, What? What?"
yeah. People that make websites that are like completely keyword stuffed and like obviously spun content or something, it makes no sense. And it's like, how are you ranking number one or two or three? Yeah,
Mhm.
it's mind-boggling sometimes. I, hopefully, Google catches on to them and demotes them, but
Mhm.
I've seen some just hang around.
I
I don't
I
get it.
Mhm. I feel like we could have a whole separate conversation about conspiracy theories about what Google is doing in the background, even though I don't wanna put it out there, like, but I do because I feel like there are.
Well, I mean, with that said, like just going through like forums and Twitter and this, that, and the other, like reading comments and other people who do SEO and them complaining about how are the first 10 results like complete garbage and I have to go to the second page to find, something that I'm looking for. And it's like, what are you doing, Google?
Mhm.
What are you guys doing?
Yeah. That's
So that
that
happens.
yeah. It's stuff that doesn't adhere to the quote unquote rules, but it seems to make it. And it not and do the best practices, do the things you should, but at the same time, we've definitely seen it where people break those rules. And that's why, like, even, oh my gosh, this reminds me of, like, title length thing here, where people they're like, Google's like, don't have too long of a title length. But then, we've tested it and seen page rank grow and stuff on pages where the title is quote unquote too long. And, and that's not telling everybody to, like, all right, start going down a rabbit hole of, like, making really long titles and stuff. But do things, test them, and the rules, I think, are flexible to a degree. But you have to be able to test and figure that out. You aren't
Right.
just going to know it.
But it's important to include your keyword in the title, but there's a large percentage of titles that Google just changes. And
Hmm.
it's like, I didn't, that's not what I put in. Where'd you come up with that one, Google? Like, or
Hmm.
they'll rearrange what you put. I mean, I've seen sites put like really long sentences as their title. And I don't know if it's because they are hoping Google just catches on to a piece of it and puts it there. But yeah, it's sometimes it's mind boggling. It's like, I, I didn't, what is this title? I have to go check to make sure I didn't like put that title there because I'm like, that makes no sense. But
Yeah.
Google, I think I saw a number that changed something like 30% of titles, like just to say what they wanted to say. Um, there's also like a lot of people, and I think I still do it, like put, the name of the business in the title. Like basically, from what I read, that you no longer really need to do that because Google will throw that in there anyways. So
It's
who
always
knows?
changing.
Thanks, Google.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things. Like, hmm, don't really know what's going on. But I mean, you can have different people do do the same search at the same time and get like five different results. So
Mm-hmm.
it it's one of those things where I think it's if you have the best page and the best information and the best data, then we have to rely on Google to make the right decision in the end, to where they will keep that the best page towards the top or at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of it comes from people clicking into a page because someone has like a clickbaity title, and if they're bouncing back out of that, they're going to lose rankings. And if
Mm-hmm.
people are clicking into a page that is actually good and they stay there, they're going to gain rankings. So there's a lot of fluctuation sometimes, and Google's trying out testing stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's
It's it.
why.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, that's why it's interesting with like reporting, because a lot of times reporting like from SEMrush or whatever, just takes a snapshot at the time of like say where your rankings are or where your visibility is. And so instead of like getting the whole month, or they're just getting that, like, I do a report today at 11:16, that's where your rankings were, and then at 12:15 it could be different. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
I
unfortunately another way.
And you
Yeah.
don't want people to get the wrong idea that, like, like there's this, continual impermanence. But I think that is the thing too that touches back on, like, the ROI, and, like, if you're paying attention to it, like the stock market, you're not seeing the long-term gains. If you're watching it day by day, it's just like, it's too much of a microcosm to, think that that's okay, this is it. Like, no, it you got to keep up with
Well, and it also goes into the fact that if you stop doing SEO, then you're not going to be up there anymore. You're just going to drop because of all the other people that are doing it and that are fighting for it. You're not going to be considered anymore. So
That is so true. I have one last question for you, but I wondered if you had another joke before I get into that.
I think I'm out of jokes.
Oh,
Actually,
okay, all right. So
mm,
I just wanted to open the door before we close this out here. So
maybe
it,
I could think of one. No,
I'd be really impressed if you just made up an SEO joke on the spot.
I would too. Actually,
Hmm.
I would impress myself. Brent, SEO joke. Let's go.
Yeah. Ooh, I no,
Pun. A
no,
pun.
not bad pun. No. Uh, I'm sorry. I wish I had one off the top of my head. I don't. But I do have a question, and it, where do you think SEO is headed for marketers, companies, and the general public? I know there's algorithm updates, and Google has been working really diligently on, helping, suppress the organic listings with a good old, map pack and ad pack and, packs of, results to questions. But, besides that sort of, obvious change in their structure and how they approach things, what do you think is, where do you think things are headed for like SEOs as a whole?
I think that first off, it's going to continue to be like a constant struggle with Google because they make so many changes and they're trying to add so many ads, maps. People also ask this, that, and the other, but just staying 5 or 10 steps ahead of where they're going. So paying attention to the test that they're writing, paying attention to what they're saying, reading between the lines, and doing your own tests. Doing things like entity SEO. So like using a lot of schema markup, which I think gets like missed a lot. I feel like that's really where a lot of people are lagging right now, and it's what Google really likes. That's why you're seeing all of the different zero positions and things that are extra, coming up in the searches like FAQs and the people always also ask because they're doing entity SEO. They're tagging everything with markup. They're telling Google what page is about, what the video is about, the image. It's giving it all context.
Yeah.
So being able to stay ahead of them, but also just staying ahead of your competition too. So just keeping your finger on the dial of what they're doing, and why maybe somebody started to outrank you or started, just are they doing what are they, so I'm always doing research and paying attention to what's new and what's changing. Like where's it at SEO actually headed? Uh, I mean, I think that more people are starting to understand what SEO is. Like 5 or 10 years ago, people had no idea. But I mean, if you watch like Shark Tank, Mark Cuban's always talking about your company needs SEO. Like I've got SEO people. I can, a year from now, your company could be, making this amount of money and just from doing that. Like I think things like that, like are helping people understand that it's an important thing to have on your website. If you don't do it, you're kind of like a gas station in the middle of a cornfield. You have a good website, but no one's going to find it because how can they? It's not optimized. It doesn't. If all your pages say home or services or whatever, then no one's going to find you because unless they are searching for, maybe the name of your company, which hopefully you have that in the title instead of home or have it somewhere. But yeah, that's I
I
don't know. I got lost in my answer. So
no, I mean, in a way, people kind of have to keep to doing what they need to do. They kind of have to keep sticking to like the basics at the end of the day. But always keep an eye out for their competition or new things. And you mentioned testing, which I do think is really critical. Doing your own tests or doing your own experiments. Um, if I had to toss anything in, I would just say, keep looking at user experience, making sure that you have a good flow throughout your site. You don't have anything confusing. And I love using this term click rage that, if that I saw that from, I think Hotjar, where people are obsessively clicking somewhere where maybe it's not a button, but they think there's a button or there should be a button. But, paying attention to those user experience things like, and that does come down to page speed, page flow. Yeah. And then I guess the only other thing I'd throw out there, because you touched on web accessibility in regards to like, some of these things being beneficial. And I totally agree and think that it is important. People should be thinking about, web accessibility, and alt tags are just a very simple, straightforward thing that people can do to benefit that. But wow, I feel like SEOs and web accessibility experts are going to have to start, kind of going more hand in hand on some of these things, because they do, tangentially touch each other, in terms of like, the different, activities. And good SEO is generally good, for accessibility, like good semantic structure, a hallmark of like, hey, have your page, in a decent structure. And obviously that's good for web accessibility. So
Right.
I think both of those, sides, playing together could be really good for everybody, because, as people start to improve their sites, making accessibility better is going to be, I think a goal for the web in general, is that federal sort of legislation is just or federal guidance has just come into play. So anyway, yeah, that's all I got to add. But yeah, sometimes you gotta
Yeah,
just gotta keep watching out.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Well, James, this was fun. Thank you
Oh,
so much for
one
doing
more
this.
thing.
Oh, wait.
CTAs.
Oh, all right. All right. That's legit.
Make sure you have a lot of CTAs and forms,
And
because if you don't have a CTAs, then you're doing it wrong.
a good descriptive CTA. Don't not to
Yes.
learn more.
And prominent, high on the page,
A
if you
button.
can. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
CTAs, call to action.
Yeah.
Yep. That's all.
The Chicago Transit Authority.
Yes. Hmm.
Is that
Don't,
is no?
I
I
don't
don't know
know.
if that's a thing.
Maybe.
Uh well,
Sounds
anyway.
right. Anyways,
Thank you, James. I really appreciate you being a part of the podcast, and definitely for all your thoughts and insights and stuff on SEO.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I am Brent Feldman, and this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox, and we will be back soon with more content. Thanks.